The Dr. Terri Show is presented by Evexias Health Solutions. Evexias Health Solutions is an emerging leader in the integrative medicine on a mission to positively impact people's lives through the transformation of healthcare. Evexias educates and trains practitioners on the new, innovative, integrative therapies that support a preventative care model that drives vitality as you age. You can learn more about Evexias Health Solutions and many of the healthcare topics we discuss on the Dr. Terri Show at Evexias.com. That's EVEXIAS.com, as well as find a provider near you. Now here's today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dr. Terri Show. I have Elizabeth DiMeo, clinical nutritionist, again in the studio. This time we're going to talk about supplements. You know, we're spending 3 times more as a family in a household on supplements statistically than we did 20 years ago. Why is that? And is it really necessary? Do we need these supplements? Are they good? Are they giving us what we need? Or are we just chasing, symptoms with a supplement to try to fix that? We're going to talk all about this today, and we're even going to talk about water. Water is a really important way to get some really good nutrients, but are we getting good nutrients from our water? So join us in this conversation today as we talk about supplements and nutrients in water. Okay, hi again.
Hi, Terri.
You know, we've had some great conversations about food, and we've had a couple of little brief conversations about nutrients and supplements and things. But again, you know, we'll dip our toe in some of these conversations, and then people come back and want a little more information. So I really want to talk about today just supplements in general, because, you know, we're spending 3 times as much now on supplements per household than we did 2 decades ago. I think it's something like over $40 billion industry here in the States, or that could be globally. It doesn't matter. It's a lot of money, and people are looking for something. You know, when I see patients in our clinics, and you know, patients will bring in or tell me or list out all of their supplements, and when you start asking people, what are you taking this for? What are you taking that for? Well, this one is so my focus is better, and this one is so that, you know, this is better and that is better, or I read online this thing, or I heard a podcast that talked about this and I need to take that supplement. And I'll be the first to admit, whenever I hear Jim LaValle speak, I'm like on Amazon ordering this supplement. You know, I'm like, wow, I guess I need that. I need pomegranate seed. I need this, that, and the other. But then even I get supplement fatigue. So people are looking to feel better, I think, in some ways, and maybe they just think that it's healthy. But are we, you know, the conversation I want to have with you today is, are we taking the right kind of supplements? Do we even need them? Are we replacing healthy eating habits with supplements? Is that our mentality? You know, are we marketed to? Also, I think we are, because so many of the packaged processed foods say fortified with 9 essential vitamins and nutrients. You know, there's nothing fortified about anything in a package, but we've had that conversation. So let's just talk about supplements. And I know you're itching to have this conversation because this is
I
your
know.
wheelhouse.
I could just spend hours. And again, all good points, and it can bring us back to full circle about eating well. But, you know, supplements are meant to supplement a good diet. Supplements are not meant, technically speaking, to supplement a diet that's full of ultra-processed food, a diet that's lacking fiber, the SAD diet, the standard American diet, where we're getting the seed oils, the rancid oils, the hydrogenated oils. I mean, lack of nutrition, if you're not eating well, means you will begin to have micronutrient deficiencies. Now you have clinical and subclinical. A clinical deficiency is scurvy, like the sailors that started losing their teeth.
We really don't see anymore, really.
No, very rare.
Very rare.
Or vitamin A deficiency in third world countries amongst children, which can lead to blindness. We don't see that, but what we see are people walking around in a zombie-like state, tired, fatigued, lacking energy, not sleeping well. foggy-headed, because if we're not getting the nutrients from our food, then where are we getting them from? And if the only nutrients we're getting is from processed food, and we're putting that food in our bodies, stressing out our bodies, increasing inflammation, disrupting the gut microbiome, disrupting the oral microbiome, everything's impacting, and all the pathways are leading to how do we just fuel our body well, then we're going to go seek those supplements or seek something, that panacea, to help us improve how we feel. Because at this point, it's hard to go to the practitioner and find the practitioner that knows what they're doing. If you look at NHANES data, the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey data, this is data that's been collected over the last 30, 40, 50 years. The shortfall nutrients are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E.
Fat soluble.
All fat soluble, vitamin C and zinc. Most of those immune supporting nutrients, fat soluble nutrients, as you said. And if you started tagging on other nutrients like potassium, which you get from your plant foods, magnesium, which you get from your plant foods, you can just see the spiral of subclinical deficiencies that never get really looked at unless you're doing lab work, or you're going down the functional road and you're making sure that people have adequate those adequate nutrients from B12 to zinc to iron. It just keeps going down a rabbit hole.
And then what happens is, a patient will show up in an office with Hashimoto's thyroid, and they're placed on a synthetic thyroid medication rather than recognizing that that's a selenium deficiency. 99% of the time, that is a selenium deficiency.
And that is a nutrient that is deficient in our diet.
And so, but then let's say that I am taking all these minerals and great supplements, but you made a great point earlier that because of our diet, our guts are so, for lack of a better term, jacked up. Are we even absorbing those nutrients from the supplement, or are they all just kind of sitting in our gut? I remember seeing one time this, I don't remember if it was a study or what it was. This is way before social media and everything, but it showed an X-ray, I think it was an X-ray of this person's stomach that was just full of these tablet supplements, just sitting there, not doing anything, not breaking down, not digesting. It was like, wow, how do you see like 20 supplements in this person's gut? But are we even, because of our diet, everything goes back to the food, right? I mean, Hippocrates said it best. But are we even absorbing those nutrients? That's a big question. So there's so many spokes to this supplement wheel. So let's just start with, what are we, you already started the conversation, truly deficient in, and how is the best way to replace those deficiencies? We've talked a little bit in another conversation about the differences between, what you can go to the vitamin shop or Costco and all these commercial, supplements. Supplements are not a regulated industry in this country, so there's no required testing to show that what it says on the label is really what's in there. It's not required to be tested for molds and toxins and other things as well. So how do we know what we're getting? That's, how do we know what a good supplement is in the first place? So, but first let's talk about what are we deficient in and why? So I'm a root cause girl, right? I know we're multi-mineral deficient in this country.
We don't drink, we drink filtered water.
So great. Let's talk about that. Let's just talk about that.
In spring water that's going down, through the rocks with the dirt and all the other things, the natural elements. So everything from vanadium and boron and magnesium,
everything on the element table.
Everything on the element table. Your body needs those tiny, tiny trace minerals, because micronutrient deficiencies isn't glaring. I mean, we know B12. It should be somewhere between 6 and 800 or 6 and 900.
6 and 900 is optimal, but the reference range on a lab is 200 to 900, which is terrible.
And how do we testing magnesium? If we look at red blood cell magnesium, that's going to help us. But it's hard to really pinpoint these deficiencies. But you can tell very simply when people, as a nutritionist, I've been in this business for 30 years, counseling person after person after person, improving their diet as best as we can with the 80-20 rule. Do the best you can, avoid packaged foods, all that. Try to get more fiber, try to get more plant foods. As Michael Pollan says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That doesn't mean be a vegetarian.
Right.
It doesn't mean be a vegan. It means get an array of nutrients as best as you can to improve that micronutrient status so that we feel better. But the thing is we just go over the counter and we start buying supplements. There's no guarantee we're getting what we need, and we could potentially be impacting our health. If we take too much zinc, we might have a copper deficiency.
Right.
If we take too much iron, we might increase oxidative stress. If we take calcium, we might increase the risk for atherosclerosis because we don't have vitamin A and K with the D because they're all needed. So for me, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is one of my favorite sayings, and say, look, all OTC supplements are bad, over-the-counter supplements, and everybody needs to be supplementing. But in today's world, if we can't endure the difficulty of trying to improve our diet and really changing our thought process around that, we probably need supplements.
Yeah, okay.
And if we're going to buy them, let's go to a practitioner such as yourself who can navigate what's best and find out where we might be deficient to improve our overall health for the long term.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, and you hit on a couple of things. I know, when during COVID and during cold and flu season, people just pile on the zinc.
Yeah.
And which I think in short bursts, if you're sick, that's probably okay. That kind of can help you with that viral load, right? But long term, and this is what we're seeing to your point, we're seeing copper deficiencies, and copper deficiencies show up as so many random things that clinicians have no idea that it's a copper deficiency.
And they're not looking for it.
And they're not looking for it. So what are some examples of a copper deficiency? How that might show up?
Well, I think fatigue would probably be one of them.
Yeah.
And iron is another one. Iron can impact sleep and can impact fatigue. So if you're not looking at ferritin and you're only looking at an iron panel, ferritin should be between 50 and 60, not 50 or below, especially for a menstruating woman or especially for a child. You want that level up there because you're going to feel better with iron. Iron makes hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is your red blood cells. You need those to carry oxygen
to your brain
and to your lungs. So you'll be more fatigued. You won't have the energy to want to go to the gym. And then it'll also impact your sleep. It's such a spiral, these nutrient deficiencies. Then you talk about zinc and copper, not impacting each other. 35 milligrams is enough for zinc. That's all you need.
Right. And you see supplements out there that are 50 milligrams and 100 milligrams.
Because you don't even get that in the natural world.
Yeah.
Your body doesn't need that. But you need lower doses of all of these microminerals to support health. And when I bring this up all the time.
Selenium, zinc, iodine, magnesium, those are the big
Those are the
four.
really big ones. Yep. Then we could go down the Alice in Wonderland hole, forget the rabbit hole, about the vitamin C alone is a big one. As a water-soluble nutrient, you almost need it every day.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting fresh foods, might you be contributing to gum disease? And gum disease in and of itself with the oral microbiome can contribute to heart disease.
Right.
So could
because
just
of
the link of one nutrient like vitamin C or magnesium impacts heart health, or too much calcium?
Right.
All of these things can get confusing.
You're right.
And if you don't have a practitioner that can connect the physiological dots, like, okay, this one sign could be because of a copper deficiency or an iron deficiency or osteoporosis. Is that simply an issue of poor bone health because it's related to genetics, or is an issue of lack of exercise, not enough A, not enough D, not enough K?
Hormone deficiencies.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I tell patients come in all the time on calcium supplementation because their primary care provider told them, you need calcium at your age, etc. But calcium is just one mineral that bone is made up of. It's made up of 9 minerals. We're looking at phosphorus. There's so many different things. And vitamins A, D, and K, you've talked about this, you mentioned it, all work synergistically together to put calcium in the bones and teeth where it belongs and excrete excess calcium out of the kidneys. we are over calcified in this country.
Yes, we are.
Everything's fortified with calcium.
Calcium orange juice.
Yes,
Calcium,
it's
more
in
calcium in milk.
everything. And that, yet we wonder why, again, our bone health isn't better, but our atherosclerosis rates are higher, our calcium scores are higher, because you need vitamin K2 to put, and this is different than K from leafy greens, but K2 to put calcium into the bones where it needs to be. Vitamin D get serum levels of calcium, but then your body has to do something with that calcium, right? And put it where it goes. And vitamin A helps get rid of the excess calcium through the kidneys, correct?
Yes.
Have all that right.
Yes.
So a really good bone supplement would have A, D, K, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and
Yes.
what else?
Probably boron.
Yeah.
I
boron.
would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, those things, if you're looking to improve your bone, of course, hormones play a big role, like we've talked about. So I'm glad we had that.
And just drinking soda, by the way, if you're drinking soda, you are leaching the phosphorus out
right.
of the bone.
Right.
That's a really important factor. So again, diet impacting health, taking supplements, thinking you're going to improve bone health.
Right.
And I think it's just it's so circuitous, this conversation, because if the doctor does say go get calcium, can I tell you how hard it is to have a conversation with a patient when you're a non-medical practitioner to say, well, my recommendation is actually you don't need as much calcium. You can actually get calcium in food.
Right.
And taking ADK is better, and getting vitamin K2 versus K1. K1 is leafy greens. K2 is things like fermented food. And
kimchi, things
kimchi
that we don't eat here.
And camembert cheese.
Yeah,
People are eating, Velveeta and sliced. It's
American
not even cheese
cheese.
food. It's not even cheese. It's cheese food.
Right.
Where, again, here we go back to full circle, the conversation about eat food, not too much real food.
Yeah.
It can't just be plants.
Right.
It has to be plants and animals. And think about vegans and vegetarians. Do you think they're more at risk for osteoporosis? Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you look at countries like Asian countries that don't even have dairy as a part of their diet, and
Yes.
you don't see osteoporosis as a problem.
Because
and
they're probably not drinking the soda that we're drinking.
Exactly, and they're eating more fermented foods. They're getting seaweed. They're getting vitamin K2 comes from seaweed, right? You can get vitamin K2 from seaweed.
Yep.
So there's so many ways that diet does play a role, and there's disease processes that we struggle with in this country. That other countries don't struggle with. And again, it always goes back to the food, or I air quote food all the time because
I know, 'cause is it really
it's hardly food. You said earlier that nutrients we get in packaged food, we don't really get any nutrients out of packaged food at all. You might as well eat cardboard. But another way that we're really marketed to is a lot of these, like I have them here, these hydration multipliers, like this electrolyte drink. Oh, I need more electrolytes. Oh, and this has it has some calcium, and it has some magnesium. It has these B vitamins, but the number one ingredient is pure cane sugar, and then all these other chemicals that I don't even know how to pronounce the names. So again, we even get marketed to with a lot of these healthy drinks and things like that. But going back to the whole conversation about just what are the basic key, because people get supplement fatigue. I get supplement fatigue.
Yeah.
Do I need an omega? Do I need this? Do I need that? Like if you were going to say, what are the basic nutrients that I would need in combination of, not in replace of, a whole food diet to enhance? Because even if we do have a whole food diet, our food is mineral deficient in this country.
That's probably one of the problems that leads us down the hole of, we're not getting, so a bowl of broccoli or a bowl of spinach is not the same as it was 50 years ago. It's just, leaching in the soil, but also soil erosion, and then, reusing the soil and not replacing those minerals because there's not enough land anymore. I mean, there's so many elements. Or something's been picked in California, put on a truck, stays there for days, shipped across the country, and then by the time you get it, nutrients are starting to decrease, and then you cook the food, and the nutrients are decreasing. And then so by the time you're actually eating what you're supposed to be
Do you
eating,
have any nutrition in it at all? Exactly. Some, but not to the, and it takes us back to, you said in another program, the hippie generation, but even just, small family farms and small farming and buying produce from co-op farms and locally grown things. And there's more and more grocery stores going to locally grown, getting produce from local farmers. So it is fresher and it hasn't sat on that truck for days.
That's what I do. It might not be organic, but I'll use baking soda and vinegar. I'll clean my food.
Yep.
But I'm definitely around the corner. I live in Simsbury, Connecticut. I go around the corner and I go to that farm where the tomato actually looks like and tastes like a real potato.
My dream.
Tomato it doesn't taste like fish.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, a tomato from the grocery store tastes like fish, but it's also going to have more nutrients. So let's at least get rid of the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, if they are indeed using that.
So, but talk about that, because even though we're talking about supplements, we're really talking about nutrients. And then when do we need nutrients? And I want to go back to how can we clean our food to get more nutrition out of it and decrease some of the toxic burden. But let's finish that conversation of, if I am just wanting to pick, 3 to 5 supplements that are really important to understand that I'm probably deficient in, what would that be?
I would say fatty acids or omega-3 fatty acids are a big one.
Mm-hmm.
You need omega-3s in the diet because your body doesn't make them. They are part of our inflammatory process. You need some inflammation, but you also need to down-regulate inflammation. Where do you get omega-3 fatty acids? Largely from fish.
Right.
Cold water fish like
not
salmon,
farm raised,
sardines, mackerel, and herring. Interestingly enough, and I'm going to answer your question, there's a company that I just saw came into my inbox, Fishwife. They have the most beautifully designed boxes of sardines and anchovies and smoked mackerel and, hopefully, Terry, you and I will do a day in a life of how to eat healthy, and maybe you can take some tinned fish, but you could get a fair amount of, I think, upwards between 400 and 800 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids from a can of sardines or a can of herring.
But they're so gross.
Oh, I love them. I love them. I'm going to get you to be a convert. I'm going to get everybody to be a convert.
That are like, sardines. Oh,
it's changing the palate. But I would say omega-3 fatty acids. I would say vitamins A, D, E. I would say vitamins A, D, and K for bone health, but also immune function because you need A and D. I would say vitamin E, but we can maybe put that one in the corner. I would definitely say that we need a basic multivitamin and mineral that could at least guarantee us some B vitamins, methylated B12, methylated folic acid. I would say some trace minerals would be important. What else would I recommend? I usually, vitamin C, I usually recommend about 1,000 milligrams on C. When I'm working with a patient or a client, I'm usually giving them a multi, a fish oil, a probiotic, a D, and magnesium.
Yeah. Extra magnesium.
400 milligrams, and I usually have them take it at night.
And if unless there's enough C in that multi, probably some extra C. And
definitely extra C.
Multi-mineral, I know we're more multi-mineral deficient than anything. But you made a point about the B vitamins, which again, we can talk about all the ways these things come from whole foods. That would be a good show to do, is bring out some whole foods that have all these different nutrients in them. But you mentioned methylation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people we're hearing this word thrown around about methylation. Now, I understand methylation. You could explain it to our audience as well. But there's a huge percentage of our population that has what we call a genetic SNP, or they don't have the ability to methylate properly.
Mm-hmm.
So it contributes to the toxic burden, and the toxic burden contributes to chronic disease, inflammation, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, all these other things. So I used to test everybody for MTHFR, if people listening want to know what do I test for to see if I'm a methylator. But because upwards of close to 40% of the population has some variation in their ability to methylate, I just put everybody on some form of methylated B. I just assume that you're not a methylator. If almost half the population.
Especially if you have addiction or chronic headaches or heart disease or you know, you could, the list is so long, ADD, ADHD.
Right.
You could literally look at a list of symptoms and say, you're probably not a methylator.
Right.
Depression, anxiety.
Yep.
You're probably not a methylator.
Right. And yet so many, again, you know, clinicians, we aren't trained this. You know, I think one doctor told me that they probably have maybe 2 hours of nutrition in their whole med program.
Oh, it's just horrible.
Right. So, you know, so I would say unless a primary care provider has done extra training and extra education in diet, nutrition supplementation, they probably don't have a baseline information. And that's where a clinical nutritionist would be really beneficial. And I think every clinician, whether it's your cardiovascular specialty, pulmonology specialty, brain specialty, bone specialty, family practice, should have a clinical nutritionist as part of their team to help those patients walk that out. I think that's a key thing that's missing in our, you know, multi-pronged approach to disease prevention in healthcare. So methylation, when they're looking for methylated vitamins on a B supplement, it will say
methylcobalamin for B12 versus cyanocobalamin, which actually cyanide, right? And then folic acid versus methylfolic acid or methyl tetrahydrofolate is the way you say it. You mentioned MTHFR, that it's related to the fact that it's testing how well you methylate. Methylate is a form of detoxification, and if you can't methylate, it's going back into your system, all of the toxins. And if you take NSAIDs, if you smoke, if you drink alcohol, if you have endocrine
if you breathe
chemicals,
if you eat or breathe in this country,
we probably need to detox more than we do anything. Because one way or another. But look, just eating cruciferous vegetables can help you support detoxification. Just taking a B vitamin supplement that has methylated B12, methylated folic acid, that can improve health. Those microminerals are needed. B vitamins beyond B12, B1, B2, B3, B6, support energy metabolism. You need energy metabolism, you need energy to detoxify. So your body needs nutrients and nutrition. We probably need to supplement simply because we are not getting these nutrients in our food. We are feeling fatigued, we are not sleeping. We are increasing our lack of focus and anxiety and depression and chronic disease because we aren't supplying the body with its base nutrients to function well. If we shifted the conversation and literally said, just try to eat real food as best as you possibly can. Start making better choices in restaurants. Avoid the packaged food. I mean, if the first ingredient in this is sugar, and let's just talk about how many sugars. So it's 11 grams. If you look at this label, it's now telling you what the new label is, stating 11 grams of added sugars. That's 4 teaspoons of sugar. That's 8 teaspoons of sugar.
Right.
That's a lot. That's more sugar
Nobody would
than your
ever
body
sit
needs.
down and eat 8 teaspoons of sugar, I would hope.
No, and interestingly enough, this is a great fact as it relates to supplements. The more sugar you eat, the less nutrition you have.
Yeah.
Because sugar actually drains your body of many nutrients. So cutting down on sugar, eating more fiber, eating a healthy food, taking base supplementation, omega-3s, a probiotic, ADK, magnesium, and a multi-mineral multivitamin is probably a really good place to start. And if it were up to me and everyone who was listening to this podcast said, well, how do we know what company we should use?
Yes,
How do we
just
know
was gonna
what
talk about
company
that.
do we need to get? I would say, and I said it before on a podcast of yours, I think I need a T-shirt that says, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater."
Yeah.
But we have to be careful about over-the-counter supplements because they don't guarantee you what you really need.
Right.
So seek out
CGMP.
and seek out a good provider like yourself.
Right, and I talked about this with another clinician, the other day, because we used to toss around this term a decade ago of pharmaceutical grade supplements. There's really no such thing as that. But what we were referring to is a supplement that goes through the same rigorous testing as pharmaceutical medications do. And that's good manufacturing processes, CGMP or GMP certified. So even if people are looking for supplements, there are good supplements out there to purchase. The ones that we carry in our offices and a lot of clinicians carry in their offices are always GMP because they're only clinicians can sell them. But you can get supplements that are GMP. They're harder to find, but you can get those online, on Amazon, different companies, that I know about. But that's a good way to tell. And I was going to have that conversation. And the thing about methylation, I just want to take it back to that just for a moment, is you touched on it, and it's so important. We can't get away from toxicity in our world. It's just not possible.
It's really not.
There are, somewhat over 400 chemicals dumped into our environment, 200 new chemicals per year added to our environment of just what we breathe. So we can't get away from it. Even to your point, if I'm eating all organic, we still can't get away from the glyphosate that's flying over from the neighboring farm and landing on our vegetables. So we have to give our body ways to do what it does best, and that's detoxify. Our liver is involved in that. Methylation is a part of the liver process of detoxification. And because so many of us are not methylators, we do need a form of methylated B vitamins. That's so important. You mentioned earlier, and I want to go into this a little bit because it always comes back to the food. And let's say I am buying my tomatoes from a local farmer. They're not organic. I don't know what he's sprayed on there. What's a great way, you kind of talked about it, but I want to go a little deeper, how to clean those vegetables to at least get as much of the yuck off of it so I can have
consume it
and get the nutrients out of it. So
baking soda and white vinegar.
So how
you
much
can
of
go
each?
to Costco and buy, honestly, the largest bag of Arm & Hammer baking soda and white vinegar. And I use a couple of tablespoons. I don't measure. I literally a couple of tablespoons, some water.
In a bowl of water and just soak the veggies in there?
In a bowl of water and a few tablespoons of vinegar, maybe about a quarter of a cup. I'd say that's 4 tablespoons. So quarter cup of vinegar, some water, and some baking soda, and let it sit there. And
how long?
I usually probably 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
while you're prepping other parts of the meal or whatever.
Right, and it's still better. And a lot of people do this. They come home from the grocery store. Let's say kale, for example. They wash their kale in the baking soda and in the vinegar, and you dry it in a salad spinner so you get all the water out. And then instead of putting your kale in a plastic bag or in the drawer, wrap it in paper towels. Or wrap it in a dish towel. I use potato flour dish towels that I get on Amazon, and they're big white towels. And I literally wrap my vegetables, and my lettuce stays.
Because there's a lot of chemicals on the paper towels too.
And all that, if you leave water on, if you've been soaking it and you haven't dried it and you leave water on the food, it's going to start to get mushy and gross. So it can last, quite a long time.
Yeah, good.
And, something like cabbage where you're going to remove some of the outer leaves, you might not want to soak. But if you're using kale and you're using all the leaves, you probably definitely want to do that.
Or tomato,
or corn.
Any vegetable that you're going to leave
But
the skin
remember,
on.
corn comes in a stalk, but how much of the pesticide is getting into the corn? That's hard to tell. I probably would soak that really quickly, dry it, and then cook my corn and eat it on the cob.
Perfect. I love that tip, and I'm going to use it because I don't do that, and that's really good.
Great.
The other thing that you talked about earlier that I want to touch on, one last thing before we wrap up is, and this is such an important one, is I believe a huge part, besides the lack of minerals in our food, because we're drinking so much bottled water.
Oh gosh,
it is leaching. We just don't get the mineral. So talk about real water. And tap water's tough because it's got so much chlorine and fluoride and all these halides that compete with iodine, and that's a whole conversation. So what kind of water should I drink? They've got these Kangen alkaline water things that are, what is that all about? And so filtered water, bottled water, good, bad, but take the plastics out of the conversation.
Yes, we won't talk plastics. Let's just talk spring water. Spring water, you're assuming that the spring water is going through a spring, and as the water is going down the little stream or the spring, it's hitting the rocks, and all the minerals, the trace minerals in the rocks, are going to infiltrate the water. So the silica, the boron, the magnesium, even sodium is in there, and if we're drinking that kind, you might even actually get a little bit of lead. You might actually get a little, some unsavory things, but it can balance out if you're drinking water that doesn't also have chemicals in it, endocrine disrupting hormones, plastics, even if it's not from the plastic water. I mean, interestingly enough, I read somewhere that the umbilical cords of newborns are already toasted with chemicals.
Right. And over 200 chemicals have been found.
We need to drink water. We need to drink water daily. Do we need to drink 8 to 10 8-ounce glasses of water a day? I sometimes think people might even be drinking too much water.
Yep.
But we certainly shouldn't be drinking soda for certain. Or maybe some of these drinks that are
let's say
like Gatorade and stuff like that.
A lot of sugar. Let's say I live in the city, like my daughter lives in Dallas, and Dallas water's just nasty.
You need a water filter that's going to actually filter out the chemicals and then actually put the minerals back in. And believe it or not, I think there is a company out there. I think Mark Hyman might have talked about it once. I could not remember the name.
So looking for a water filter that filters out the bad stuff, but also puts back in the good stuff.
That's perfect. Yeah. Minerals. Trace minerals.
Because the water that comes from just our wells is all treated. And when they talk about treated water, where is all that water coming from? Is it, in the big water towers from the sky when it rains, or is it coming from a water table, from a well? I've heard, I've got some friends that have well water, and I have a friend in California that has well water, and she's had it tested. It tastes so good, and it's so soft on the tongue, and it's so high in silica.
Yeah,
right?
Which is so good for your detrusor muscle in the bladder.
Yeah.
You need silica.
Look at this. So where do you grab these things in your brain?
It just comes out. But this is a perfect example of we can't even, of all of these things, we can't even think about it because it's so overwhelming.
It is overwhelming.
But we've just bastardized everything.
Right.
And how do we
in the name
get
of
back
profit
to the
and
hippie?
Convenience?
Right.
It's really in the name of convenience, and the need for convenience has created a really very profitable industry in the food and supplement industry and all of that.
And I just wanted to say one thing real quick, and because I know you want to wrap up, but it's funny that you say that about the water, because I was out to lunch with a girlfriend of mine on Sunday in Litchfield, Connecticut. It's a cute little town. And she ordered some water, and I was like, oh, just have some tap water, whatever. She's like, no, I'm ordering the Italian water in the glass bottle. And it was chilled. It has a white and red label. Can't remember the name of it. It was the best glass of water that I have had in such a long time. And I thought, I just want to drink this water.
Yep.
And then I looked at my Evian bottle when I flew here yesterday, and it has all those trace minerals from a spring somewhere, some mountain in France.
Except it's in plastic.
Except if it's in plastic.
That there are actually water sommeliers. Did you know that?
Oh, no.
Yep, there are. They taste water from all over the world. So if I'm going to buy a water bottle, because we get marketed to that, we get smart water and this water and that water. So just stick to spring water.
Spring water, I think, is probably the best. Or get yourself one of these filters, and gosh, maybe next time we chat.
Natural spring water, natural mineral water, not added carbonation.
And if we can get it in a glass bottle, it's so much better.
Yeah, and at least transfer it to a glass bottle. Okay, great. We've all said a lot again. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Terri.